Who would doubt the prophets? What have we foretold that has not come to pass? There are those who said this day would never come. What are they to say now?
The time right now is 9:36 p.m. and today is November 1st, 2020. I am pre-recording this message. Election day is a few days away. As you know, this is November 1st and election day is a couple of days away. But I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to say. I knew this day was coming. I forecasted, I foretold it, I prophesied it, whatever you want to say. It doesn't really matter at this point. I knew it was coming. This meme that started off this video, I made this meme years ago. In fact, I think I made it probably in 2016 because I knew that this day was coming. People have come to my channel, they troll my channel. They're like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. He's getting 4 more years, blah, 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 blah. And I kept saying, no, this day is coming. People are like, oh, yeah, well, you're an idiot if you want to vote for Biden. You're a moron. You just want AOC and you want her to take over. And then I had to argue with all these dudes down south. I had to argue with all these people online. I had to argue with all these people, nameless faces, avatars, this, that, and the other. I kept saying it. I said it for years and years and years. I kept saying it for at least the last 4 years in a row. I kept saying it. I kept saying, guess what? He's about to become a one-term president. So the question you're probably going to ask yourself is, how did you know he was going to become a one-term president? Some people might speculate that I was a Terminator sent back from the future by Skynet, and I just know what's going to unfold over time. That's not true. I wish I was a Terminator, but I'm not. Some people might say, it's just a lucky guess. But then I would say, well, back in 2015, I was forecasting that he was going to win and beat Hillary Clinton. And people were saying, no, he's not. You're wrong. I had to argue with all types of people. I had to argue with Hillary supporters. I had to argue with Jeb Bush supporters, who are the lowest of the low. I've argued with thousands upon thousands of people. My block list is probably a mile long. And people are like, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. He won in 2016. I was one of the few people who said, especially here in liberal New York, I was like, yo, he's going to win. And they were like, no, he's not. You're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. I argued with all these people, and they kept shouting me down. They kept ignoring me. He won. But then I also knew from the moment that he got into office that this was going to happen. And again, the question is going to be like, well, how did you know that this was going to happen? And I'm going to be like, when you say that, like, how did I know? I'll be like, well, I'm a speed chess player. I play speed chess. I play it a lot. And part of playing speed chess is anticipate your opponent's next move. But not just his next move. You have to anticipate his next series of moves. You can only learn speed chess by playing hundreds upon hundreds of rounds against multiple people. Because it's not that you're not playing the game. You're playing the man that sits across from you. Trump was the man who sat across from me. And as you can see, I anticipated his every move. I anticipated the crowds of liberals who gathered up against him. I anticipated the angry right-wingers who rose up to become part of his cult of personality. I anticipated all of that. I will say this, however. The one thing that I can't anticipate or couldn't possibly anticipate, I shouldn't speak in the present because it's as if I'm in the future speaking about the past, but I'm also in the present speaking about the future. What I could not anticipate, I'm going to tell you about what I couldn't anticipate a little bit later. But what I will tell you is I did understand right away from the moment he was inaugurated that the left was never going to stop. But let's rewind a second. I anticipated that Hillary was going to lose. And you'll say, well, how did you know Hillary was going to lose? I'm going to tell you about that in a second, too. But once Hillary lost, and the way she lost, she got the popular vote, lost the Electoral College. When I saw that he couldn't get the popular vote, and then I saw the ferocity of the left, I was like, you know what? They're not going to stop. They're going to fight him, and they're going to pull him out of there come 2020. People were telling me back then I was wrong. But as you can see right now, well, yeah, I guess I'm not. So let's just delve into my logic for a second, because you got to understand, there's a lot of thoughts moving around in my mind. You've been listening to me for a long time. You know what I've been saying. You know I've been forecasting it for years. A lot of thoughts in my mind, a lot of movement of neurons and neurological signals. And now you're seeing it come to fruition that I was right. Why? It feels good to know that I was right, despite the fact that the multi-billion-dollar media was wrong. It feels good to know that I was right, despite the fact that everyone around me who argued with me and made the mistake of arguing with me was wrong. But how did I know? Well, first of all, in order to understand why I knew what was coming in 2016, you have to actually go back to Obama versus McCain in 2008. Obama basically beat McCain by almost 10 million votes. It was at that point that I basically understood that the left wing had more potential voters than the right wing did. If George W. Bush's entire presidency ended in 2008 with economic collapse, and yet this many of these people, more than 50 million, were ready to vote for McCain-Palin, despite the fact that Republicans had just failed and the economy had just collapsed. It told me that even at the height of them coming out to support their candidate, that they would lose as long as the left wing showed up. It was at that point that Fox News started running on the Sean Hannity show. They were running the Stop Obama Express. I can still hear the sound bites in my mind. The Stop Obama Express. We're going to make Obama a one-term president. They had Joe Wilson shout up, you lie, you lie. Had them shouting at him in the State of the Union, being totally disrespectful of him. And I understood at that point, okay, these people are going to come out again. They know they lost, but they're going to come out again, and they're going to do their best to support whoever the Republican nominee was. The Republican nominee at the time was Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney received 60,933,000 votes, and Obama's support, I noticed, because there wasn't as much energy, there wasn't as much excitement this time around. Obviously, Obama won. However, about 5 million people, give or take, stayed home. So I always just say, yeah, he won against McCain by 10 million, but he only won against Romney by 5 million. That right there, to the Democratic National Party, that should have been the canary in the coal mine. But these people withered away. It wasn't. Hillary ran against Trump. Most people will say that she ran a half-assed campaign. I knew that lots of people were going to show up to vote for her. But what I didn't realize that Barack Obama would have gotten so many more votes than her, specifically because someone had stolen Hillary's spotlight. Bernie Sanders is the reason why Hillary lost in 2016. Nobody admits it. Every time I bring it up, I get ignored. Nobody even questions me on it. They just ignore the fact that I said that. Bernie Sanders is the reason why Hillary Clinton lost in 2016. Why? Bernie Sanders hung around for so long, and then when Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Hillary got caught trying to get rid of him, all of a sudden, Generation Z voters, Generation Z, the generation below me, they had no loyalty to her whatsoever. All they wanted was left-wing Democrat handouts. That's all they wanted. They wanted somebody to tell them, we're going to pay for your college tuition and we're going to pay it off, despite the fact that you wasted so much money going to those schools for those worthless liberal arts degrees. They wanted somebody to say, yeah, we're just going to pay all that off. They want their debts forgiven. They want universal health care. They're not working for it, but they want universal health care. They want all of these things. I realized right away that Bernie Sanders was making such radical promises that they were going to listen to him over Hillary Clinton. He's older than Hillary Clinton. They had nothing in common with this man except for the fact that he was making all of these wild, radical promises. And when I realized that, I was like, you know what? These kids aren't going to show up for Hillary. They didn't show up for Obama as much as they did when, he ran against McCain. If 5 million of them disappeared for him when he went up against Romney, then that means that they're either disenfranchised or they're just not feeling it for whatever reason, or it's not exciting anymore, so they're just going to dip and they're going to stay home. I realized that then. It was no surprise to me that Hillary was about to lose, because I forecasted she was going to lose before she lost. And I was telling everybody that, but nobody was listening to me. Everybody ignored me. And I said, you know what? These kids are not going to support her. I was born in the 80s. I was around when Hillary was around in the 90s, and I remember how the Republicans had poisoned the well against her with Fox News and the constant stuff against her, and obviously Bill Clinton. But I knew they weren't going to show up for her. And sure enough, they didn't show up for her. She lost. Well, that's past now. So then Trump won. From the moment he got in there, I knew that the left wing was going to regroup and they were going to redouble their efforts to fight against him. But what I couldn't anticipate was what happened next. I couldn't have imagined that the left would be successful running the Trump is under the control of Vladimir Putin narrative so well and for so long. I thought eventually it would have fizzled out like a bad fart, but it caught traction and it continued and continued and continued. I couldn't anticipate that Trump would allow the media to see the, attacks on migrant children, the so-called illegal aliens, illegal immigrants, whatever you want to say, but that the left's media would be so perfect at depicting it in the media as long as it did. I couldn't have anticipated that Trump would be so bad at dealing with social issues such as attacking football players for kneeling and doing peaceful protests at football games. Normally, a president would have kept his mouth shut and wouldn't have gotten involved in that, because all it does is inflame the other side instead of you just leaving it alone. I couldn't have anticipated that so many of the people in his administration would be indicted, and in fact, many went to jail. I couldn't have possibly imagined that that could happen, because I figured he had control of the Justice Department, but I guess he didn't. I couldn't imagine that the left would resort to picking so many, far to the left radicals, such as AOC, who's basically the leader of the Democrat Party as far as I'm concerned. I couldn't have imagined that they would get in there so easily. I couldn't have imagined that once they got in, that he would actually be impeached. I had an uncle who was arguing with me that Trump was going to be impeached from the moment he set foot in office. And I was like, that's not true. He's not going to be impeached. But see, the problem was he was assuming that Trump would be impeached and removed. I was believing that, based upon what I know about the word impeachment, that, they could bring charges against him. But, as long as the Republicans held the Senate, there was nothing that was ever going to really happen to him, because they were never going to allow him to actually be removed. So, he did get impeached, but obviously he wasn't removed. I think it's kind of funny that I actually had social studies class long enough to actually understand what, the word impeachment means, while most people didn't understand it. They thought it just means you get thrown out of office, which that's not what happens. But Trump got himself added into the history books as an impeached president, the third president to be impeached, by the way, under right after Bill Clinton. I did a video about that a while ago, but I couldn't have anticipated what came next. Coronavirus, the ultimate eraser of every single possible thing that he could possibly take credit for. His entire economy erased, evaporated into the wind. His entire presidency marked by over 250,000 American deaths. Although you've got to argue with Fox News and all of their watchers who want to say, oh, yeah, well, it wasn't that many. That number's inflated. They didn't die of coronavirus. They died because of obesity and smoking and blah, 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 blah. Coronavirus was like the plague sent from God down on Pharaoh. And the Egyptians had to sit by and watch And I'm sure many of the Egyptians would have told Pharaoh, well, God said, let my people go, so you should do it. But, they didn't want to get executed, so they didn't bother saying anything. So they just sat by, they dealt with those plagues, they dealt with the locusts, they dealt with the blood, the water turned to blood, they dealt with all of that up until the firstborn died. And I feel bad for the Egyptians, but they just had to deal with it because they didn't really have a choice. Coronavirus was the plague itself sent down by God himself. And it brought this entire situation to the point that it's at right now. If I had came back from the future and I had told everybody that in the year 2020 that there was going to be a virus that was going to cause the entire world to shut down, go through a massive global recession, go through a massive global depression. If I had came back from the future and I said that, I'd be locked up. People would call me crazy. And sure enough, it actually happened. How about that? I could have never possibly anticipated also that the response to the virus and the pandemic would have been so lackluster, so, I'm trying to think of the word, so incompetent. So the military would call it dereliction of duty, but they can't say anything because they don't have freedom of speech. I couldn't possibly have imagined what has happened has happened. It's like sometimes I find myself thinking, I can't believe what's happening right now. And I mean, this was such a curveball. I couldn't possibly have imagined any of this. I just couldn't imagine it. I mean, you'd have to be from the future to imagine all this because you wouldn't have imagined it. You would have lived it, or you would have witnessed it, or you would have read about it, but you came back in time to tell people about it. And I'm guaranteeing nobody would have listened to you. You would have sounded nuts. You would have sounded crazy. They would have locked you up. They would have put you in an asylum. The government response has been pathetic. $1,200 over the last 9 months. What is this? November? 11 months. You had one stimulus check, which you shouldn't have even gotten because the government's not supposed to be doing that. I'm at a loss for words. I mean, it's so ridiculous. I'm at a loss for words. I don't even know what to say. But what I can say is that I knew it was coming. I didn't know what it was going to look like. I didn't know how. I didn't know why. I didn't know what it was going to look like. I didn't know when these things were going to happen. But I knew it was coming. And it came. And that's it. So I guess the question is, what do you do now? How do you move forward? I just wanted to leave you with these final thoughts. And in fact, because, we've been through so much together in the last 4 years, I don't really think that just words are enough to express how we're all feeling right now. So what I'm going to do instead, I'm going to leave you with this little song selection that I wrote particularly for this moment when we would be saying goodbye to Trump and his cronies and all of his indicted co-conspirators and whatnot. I just figured that this song would sum it up as best as possible. So yes, okay. So I call this song "Goodbye to Trump." How do I say goodbye to what we had? The good times that made us laugh outweigh the bad. Thought we'd get to see forever, but forever's gone away. It's so hard to say goodbye to yesterday. I don't know where this road is going to lead. All I know what we've been through. 4 years of bullshit. If we get to see tomorrow, I hope it's worth all the wait. It's so hard to say goodbye to yesterday. And I'll take with me the memories to be my sunshine after the rain. It's so hard to say goodbye to the last 4 years. And I'll take with me the memories to be my sunshine after the rain. It's so hard. It's so hard to say goodbye to yesterday. Thank you very much. Thank you.
To be continued.